All right, Herb, I'll start it off, but to go into the Hurricanes Wall of Honor, what does it mean to you?
Well, it's a special honor because I've been with the team for 37 years, and there are many people that have made contributions at critical times that have been very important. And so for the committee to think that I'm worthy of this recognition is truly special, and I'm honored by it.
You mentioned that you've been around since basically day one, had an impact in bringing a Western Hockey League back to the city. What do you remember from that time?
Well, it was interesting. I remember being at the last game of the Broncos, and Steve Foggy Falwell was doing the announcing, and he mentioned there was less than 900 people at the game, and I thought, well, that doesn't bode well for the future. And then, quite unexpectedly, they got traded to Swift Current, or transferred to Swift Current, and a large number of people that were fans here in town were quite disappointed. They obviously had an emotional attachment to that team, and when it came to us trying to establish a club at that time, it was somewhat difficult. The group that initially started it were kind of referred to as the Four Bums in Blue Jeans, and their only problem with wanting to organize a team and so forth is they didn't have any money. And so as a consequence, a larger group of people got brought in, and it was decided that they would try to create a community team, and that's where we came up with the idea of doing a nonprofit corporation where we got out and sold season or shares for $100 a piece. And we were very fortunate to get the support of the community at that time. I know the city of Lethbridge kicked in with a loan for about half of the value of the club, and we were able to negotiate a deal with the Wranglers to bring the team here. So I kind of had the opportunity to watch this happen, to watch the guys that were all involved, the initial board of directors and so forth. And quite frankly, without the help of Bob Bartlett, who was obviously well connected to the WHL at that time and also as the city manager, we were able to do this. And so it's very gratifying. It's probably one of the more rewarding experiences I've had of my so-called public life. And so I very much appreciate the connection with the club.
What does it mean to you to see the organization all these years later now flourishing and still successful in the community model?
Well, I think it wasn't until about 8 years ago that I could actually feel comfortable about that. The club hired Peter Anholt as its general manager and Terry Huseman as the business manager, and quite frankly, I think they're two of the best in the business today. And that's reflected in a large part by their staff who works for them. They're all hardworking, committed, and enthusiastic, and it's a result of that I think they've been able to achieve what they have. I don't have any reservations about the success of this team in the future. We've got a very good board made up of 15 diverse individuals who understand what governance is all about, and so I'm sure that any problems that may come down the road, because with the way it is with hockey teams, there's ups and downs, I'm sure they'll be able to navigate that.
When you look at the success of the team of late and you take away your business cap as a fan who's been around, what are some of the highlights in your mind of the Lethbridge Hurricanes in their time here?
Well, obviously the trip to the Memorial Cup in '97 was a highlight. The team that Corey played on, and for which he's being inducted today, they were a special group of people too, and Bob Lokes and that group deserve a lot of credit for what they did. The thing about these teams, whenever they kind of peak, those are times that you kind of really remember, because people come out, they're very enthusiastic, and quite frankly, for an organization like ours that's underfunded to some extent, we rely heavily upon the public coming out and supporting the team. So when those times happen, those are special memories. We've got a decent team this year. I understand they're competitive, and so I'm looking forward to see what goes on for the rest of the year.
What does it mean to share this moment, maybe watching Ben and Corey play on the ice? What does it mean to share this night with both of them?
Oh, it's special. I've never met either one of them personally. I've obviously watched them play. I got to tell you, any fan, I was thrilled anytime Corey Lyons ripped one from the corner into the net. I mean, it was a special thing to watch. Ben, a great defenseman. He got drafted by Columbus, a great person. I don't know that, but I've never heard anybody say a bad word about him. So it's great to be inducted with those two individuals. I think if I could get inducted into the want to be a player category, like everybody else does, anybody that's played hockey, obviously one of the things they'd like to do is to receive this sort of recognition. So I'm sure it's a big day for them as well.
What does it mean to have you mentioned the player, everybody wants to be a player and grow up and be inducted if you have a career like that. What does it mean to have a different category for the people like yourself that have an impact in different ways?
Yeah, I think it's significant. I mean, what we're trying to do is to review the history of the team a little bit and to develop a legacy. It encourages, I think, other people to participate as volunteers with the organization. I've always thought that the board of directors of the Hurricanes was probably one of the better boards to be on. I've certainly valued my time there. It's interesting. It's obviously an impactful board because the team does affect the people in the city. As we know, hockey is kind of our game. People try to identify with it, and it brings the community together. And so as a consequence, when things aren't going well, then sometimes the board has a job ahead of itself to make sure that isn't the way it is. So it's been great, and I certainly enjoyed my time there.
You talked a lot about the history of the club and whatnot. I guess how important is it to preserve that history, in your opinion, with things like the Wall of Honor?
Well, when you think about the junior hockey teams, there's a large turnover of clubs. They either move to other locations because things aren't working well for them, or the existing owner either wants to retire or they're having some problems. And so the ownership changes frequently. The whole idea of this community team was to create some stability so that it would be here and we wouldn't have to worry about the day that someone says, well, I got to move the club or I'm not doing well and those kinds of things. And when I think about it, I mean, we've been here for 37 years. That makes us one of the oldest franchisees in the league. So that's quite a feather in the cap of the boards and actually a feather in the cap of the city of Lethbridge and the citizens that have supported the team. I know that with this club, you have to understand that the shareholders are entitled to a $100 share. That's all that share will ever be worth. This club is worth quite a bit more than that, and that is an asset that really belongs to the community. And so it's up to the community as to whether this team continues in its existing form, and I'm sure it will.
And you spoke a lot about community throughout, and the Hurricanes have prided themselves on doing a lot of community initiatives, like players like Shane Smith, Braden Yeager, with their donations for their goals and their points, and those have all been matched by the team as well. And can you speak to why that's so important for a community-owned organization like the Hurricanes to keep giving back to the players and the people in the community that they represent?
Well, to speak to the point about the players being involved in the community, I mean, you'll see that throughout any league, NHL. It's because they're role models, and the whole idea is to set an example for everybody, and generosity and giving back is a very important thing. I think that on your second point was...
Oh, just talking about how the donations and why it's important to continue that relationship with the community and build it up.
I'm sorry?
And to continue building up the relationships with the community through donations.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of our objectives are to acquire and operate a team, but also part of it is to give back to the community in different ways, and primarily to support other minor hockey organizations. It can be other sporting organizations, and the hope is that we would generate enough revenue that we'd be in a position to make a significant contribution there. And we do support some of the local teams and things like that. I don't have an exact number as to the number of dollars we spend, but I think overall it's a number of dollars every year. So we're very proud of that part of what the club does in this community.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.